this episode of Teletext People from the Byte High No Limit podcast. Teletext is 50 this year, and last year we lost the last English-speaking service in Airtel in the Republic of Ireland. So now it's down to the final Teletext services in Europe, and this podcast we actually meet Matti Rämö, who is in charge of a living, breathing Teletext service, and as you will find out, it still serves people in their millions every single week. Unfortunately, when I did the recording of this podcast, there were several sound issues to contend with at both ends of the podcast. But thanks to a friend of the show, Dan Farrimond, who kindly refined the recording and did a little bit of editing for me, we can bring this podcast to you this year. I started the podcast by asking Matti how he started out on his journey into being in charge of Finland's Teletext service.
Well, I was unemployed. I was unemployed for more than a year, twice. And at a certain point, I was lucky enough to get on a course which gave the basic abilities for new digital work. That was year 2000. In that course, there were included a practice session for 2 months. And I was lucky enough to get into Yle Teletext. Because at that time, Yle Teletext was looking forward to the great future, like BBC in old times. They were thinking to do something like red button thing, not similar, but something which reminds them that. It was called future.Thanks, and it was linked to the almighty Nokia company. Nokia was thinking of launching a device to be attached to Tele to get this new kind of super Teletext. So for this new phase, they needed new people in the Teletext desk. I was really lucky. I was at the right place in the right time. And this super Teletext idea itself, it was a kind of flop. The advice was expensive, and Nokia did not develop it, and they sort of lost interest in the project too early. And this new advice, they were sold maybe only 1,000 pieces or something like that. So we were doing new contents on this super Teletext for about a few hundred Yle bosses, something, not only Yle bosses, but for a few hundred people. But the same content was stood also on the analogical Teletext, and after a few years we did this super Teletext thing before it was dropped off totally. It was a dream of something which never came true. It was too complicated. It was not handy like the ordinary Teletext. You know, the ordinary Teletext, you get these three numbers, and you get to the place. It's the page you want. You don't have to navigate through different things. You know, can you imagine the developer of this super Teletext thing? And one of this developer, he just told us that the 3-digit way to navigate is old-fashioned. It should be thrown away. I sort of laugh at this guy. I saw him a few years back, and I reminded him that, do you remember this thing that was 3-digit navigation in Teletext? It's old-fashioned. And he got very angry. He realized himself that it had been a very stupid idea. Well, I was lucky to be on this wave of super Teletext, although it was a flop. But it was my way to get into the company. That was it. That was 2001 and it started. So 21 years ago.
So when you're working at Yle Teletext, is that a national broadcaster?
Yeah, right. Today there are only 2 Teletext services in Finland. Yle and then there is this commercial channel, it's 3. But there used to be 2 more channels, but they have dropped off. They were not really good services, but they they had these services though. This commercial Channel 3 Teletext is fairly good. It's not as good as ours, but it's fairly good. It's still vital. It has vital energy.
Do you feel that you need Channel 3 to keep Yle Teletext going as well?
I feel that it's very good that this Channel 3 Teletext exists. It's a very good thing indeed. It was 2015. The problem of Yle Teletext has all these years from 81. All these 41 years, the problem has been inside Yle, the organization, that Teletext has always been drifting from one organization to another organization within Yle. And it has been a constant problem because, Teletext should have been given a status of a channel of itself inside Yle, but that was not the case. It has created some restlessness about the future, and at 2015 it really came through this problem. It was a bad moment. The old desk of Teletext was just shut down. At that time we were 4 full-time people and 4 part-time people working. I'm the only one remaining from that old desk, and there was a real danger that contents of Teletext will be cut down to the sports and news. You see, Yle Teletext is very large digital service, kind of a digital newspaper. We have 1,600 pages altogether from very different kind of things, and this organization we became, or actually only me, I became part of the news section, and they had difficulty to understand the importance of that other kind of content and news and sports. But fortunately we got over this difficult phase, and very little contents were shut down at that moment. So it has continued in the same way as before, only that I'm the only one who is doing Teletext, only Teletext. The sports news come from sports section, sports desk, and news come from news desk, from different news desks. And the same thing with the Swedish language news. That's an important part of Yle also, because in Finland there are officially 2 languages, Finnish and Swedish. So there are not so many manual, or 500-600 manual pages to be. Of that, some large parts are quite stable pages which don't get new content so often. But I try to manage the rest of that. That's my job, to after that the automatic things they function, and important pages. We have this 800-page section, which is something created for that super teletext originally. Things like security pages. The authority which is looking after the radioactive situation. It gets every hour the measuring from 16 cities. Well, there are no 16 cities in Finland, but 16 towns. And for example, in these days when we don't really know what is happening just a few hundred kilometers east of us, then it's good to have this kind of page that it immediately gives the warning in case it's necessary. Personally, I don't think that it's going to be necessary, but it's good for people to have this kind of security that these things are measured, and you can find that in Teletext every hour mini measurings. That's automatic service.
That's incredible. So whereas we might be checking the news and the weather, you can actually check for the Geiger counter measurements for your local province.
Right. Yeah. They were created originally for this super teletext idea.
So is there an appetite in Finland for teletext? How many people do you estimate still use the service weekly?
1.2 million. when you think that Finnish people are less than 6 million, 5.6 million people, it's quite a lot.
And what sort of other features does Yle Teletext offer apart from the news and the sport? You said it offers quite a broad offering. What are your favourite parts of the service?
My favourite class, the pages I do. For example, my very personal favourite is the thought of the day, page number 895. Different kind of thoughts, some funny thoughts, some serious thoughts. There are something which can be therapeutical thoughts, many kinds of thoughts, many, let's say, registers of they are not really poems, but they are thoughts, even some from cartoons.
So what does a normal day consist of, Yle Teletext? Does it run just in the daytime, or are there people there at night?
The news section there, domestic news, they are doing this news for internet. They do this news also for teletext. You can imagine the working process of the journalists today, that it's there are many things to do. So sometimes I personally feel that the teletext should be more properly taken care of. The problem points are when something very big is happening. Something like, take for example, the Trump invasion in the Capitol, and the journalists who were at working, and they were night shift working, they were so busy to do these other kind of services for internet and television that I realized in the night that teletext is not properly taken care of. So I did that. I did the news, the teletext news, although that is not really what I'm supposed to do. That since my task is to look after the teletext as a whole, I can do that. You see that it's this organizational problem. It was in the 80s and 90s, the news and sports sections, they were inside Teletext. There was a Teletext desk which had something like 30 or 40 people and working only for Teletext. Now these news and sports, even they work mainly for the news and internet. So my worry is that in some occasions, the teletext is kind of, well, it's taken care of, but not right then when the things happen.
Yes, yeah, I can see the big fear would be that, well, one of the big draws of a teletext service is that it can be up to the minute and very up to date. But from what you're explaining, if other people are neglecting to keep teletext updated, it will lose its relevance.
Slowly, yes. And the problem is also then when there are not so many people working. As I was saying, that this Trump disaster or invasion, whatever, it happened in the night time in Finland. There were not very many people at the shift. And since all the places, all the services, there's this problem of having less people to work. So basically it's a problem of some exceptional moments, but it happens.
So Yle Teletext has been going since 1981, so you celebrated your 40th birthday a year or so back. I noticed you displayed artwork from other artists from all over really, and that looked really good because obviously we could see that on our viewers as well. Is that something that you sort of like really enjoy doing, getting art on your service?
Oh, I love it. And I want to remind that the Christmas calendars will come, starting of course from the 1st in December. And as I heard from Dan Farrimond, that the works would be fine also this year.
Yeah, no worries. You might see one of mine in there this year, Matti. So,
really, that's nice.
Yeah. So hopefully so. Hopefully so. I think I did one called Yle Tide. So rather than Yuletide, so it's
I was kind of thinking, I was not sure if you are one of these artists, but I was thinking that it might be so. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your efforts to put this of art in something very, very, very nice. And I must say that it gives also some credits for me inside Yle that this kind of thing is going on. It's two-way profits in a way.
Yes. No, absolutely. Like I say, it's it's a really nice thing. And the thing is that Dan does a lot of the coordination on getting the artworks in, and I think it's probably like the second or third time that we're getting some artwork together for Yle, and it's getting easier and easier, Matti. More and more people are coming along and wanting to provide some artwork, so it's certainly appreciated. And of course in the UK we don't have our own teletext service anymore to send these artworks into, so it's good that there's one still going that will take our work, Matti.
Not only one, there are these Swiss and German, Austrian, not to forget. Teletext is fairly strong in many countries in Central Europe too.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that the British services cutting in 2012 actually helped other services in the rest of Europe, because it was more of a cautionary tale not to do away with your teletext service?
I see it as a bad example. I remember that time that even in Yle there were some people speaking, even BBC was cutting off teletext. Maybe we should think about getting the same. The voices of that kind, they're not very strong, but they existed, especially among the engineers, because we had these different systems, and at a certain point we had a system which were let's say a bit old, and from a data engineer point of view it demanded some more work. It was not so easy than other things, and this human laziness came through in these comments that we might not want to do this anymore because it needs some more effort. But today, as we just renewed the system in 2020 with this new system at least 10 more years without any major investments. So I'm still sad for you, British. I wish you could get it back.
Well, it's I guess people adapt and get on with it, but the main purpose of speaking to people who use and have dabbled with teletext is people aren't using it every day where I am, and it would just be nice for people to know about it and to know how important it was to people and how important it is still to people in other countries. I mean, when you're talking about 1.2 million people using it in a population of just over 5.5 million, my maths is bad, but that's about 20% of the population, and it's so relevant. If all of a sudden it disappeared from Finnish TV, people would want to know about that too.
That would be it's not possible. That would be a problem for Parliament. That would be such a because with a national broadcasting company is financed by direct tax of citizens, and if teletext would be cut down just like that, then there would be a great havoc about this. Okay, it's very difficult to say what is the situation after 10 years. To get some background, 20 years ago there were something like 3.2 million people watching the teletext, and when the internet things got more handy and the mobile things got more and more handy, there was this drop of viewers, and it was quite rapid drop in a few years, but then it stabilized. The drop stabilized to that 1.2 million people, and it hasn't changed for a few years at all. And okay, you can speculate about that. Will there be another drop phase after a few years or not? We cannot say, but at this time I don't see any reason for that, because the news in a very compact form for sports fans, at least in Finland, the situation is that you can't find the sports news, the sports results as quickly, as compactly as in teletext. It's any other service doesn't exist like that. Of course, you can find but you have to look for the handiness, the rapidness. The way to use teletext is so nice for a viewer. I don't see any reason why the demand be going down.
Yes, well, I guess one, not threat as such, but the next change. I think we've had the internet, obviously, but I think the next change might be from what we call sort of like non-linear services. What I mean by that is that teletext relies obviously on things being broadcast. If you've got people that are now taking their entertainment as and when they want it, so they're watching Netflix or Prime or HBO or something like that, they're not necessarily watching something with the VBI carrier for them to press text, so you have to rely on them to come back to the national broadcaster to press the text button maybe.
Big part of our audience is watching teletext via mobile. The direct connection with the broadcasting itself, it exists, but it's getting weaker all the time. That the mobile applications for teletext, they are very popular.
Oh, well, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting point you've raised, because it sounds like you've already navigated the big challenge that national broadcasters have, where they have to put all their offerings on broadcast television. But I think if you've already got the app and the computer taking care of your delivery of your teletext, then it sounds like you've already overcome the big problem that other broadcasters have with their teletext services.
Well, as early as 1996, Teletext started into operation. We had this head of teletext, actually the last head of teletext before the desk was cut down into many pieces. He was very able to create the connections to for example, to the hockey league, which ice hockey is very popular game in Finland. If you could follow the ice hockey league matches, teletext was very, very popular at the time. As I told him, that it was 2.2, 2.3 million people fell on teletext in the best days 20 years ago. But the great bulk of these people who follow sports events via teletext, if you're not watching the game itself. And the funny thing about these teletext mobile apps is that none of the apps is made by Yle. They are people interested in teletext who have done these apps, and from the Yle point of view, that 2020, when we changed the system altogether, that was a crucial point. That there was a fear that most of these apps can't follow the new system without some changes, and we were fearing that there could be a problem, that there could be a drop of following in that point. But we could hold that fairly well. There were only a couple of months which was a problem in this shifting to the new system.
So it was a relief that the apps that are being made by other people, your new setup would still support them. So that was a relief. And what the plans? Do you have any plans for the future of Yle Teletext, or are you going to keep things as they are, or is there going to be any? Are there any new innovations to be had at all?
The innovation thing is linked to the organizational problem. Since there is no teletext desk as such, it's kind of scattered, the organization, the way the pages come, it is scattered here and there. And so there is not a strong organization inside Yle to make these steps, to demand for resources to develop more things. That's something we are lacking at the moment, at least. But I just give you an example of a very new service we have now is linked to the price of electricity. Since there's this special era in Europe, in Western Europe, because of the lack of energy, or because of the prices of energy going up, and these also the prices of electricity. So, since the news desk did buy the rights to publish the data of electricity price, Nord Pool, I don't know if you know this, it's selling electricity in Northern Europe, and the prices going up and down, and the consumers are depending on the price of all the electricity if they want to heat their sauna or if they heat their apartment with electricity, then it's important to follow when the price is cheap. And now we have this service that you can, because the price is given 24 hours before, people can plan the use of electricity for the next day. And we have this page also in Teletext because the news desk bought the rights of this data. So something is happening, and we are still doing something new things. Even those Sami language regional news things is fairly new. That's 2 years ago. So some little things are happening, but not as much as I wish. I wish we could do more.
Well, I'd say that, I mean, you know, the electricity price is very important to people, so what's perceived as a small innovation is really a big thing to your users. That's a very imaginative way of using the Teletext service, and one that's so relevant. So I'm very impressed with that, Matti. Very, very impressed indeed.
Thank you. And the point of this innovation is that it came from the public. I got dozens of messages that why don't you put this thing on Teletext, and I was already answering that, well, we have not really resources to develop Teletext so much, but just by accident I found out that the news desk was doing this thing, so we could combine the efforts. But I mean, what I want to say that the contact with the public, with the audience, has traditionally been in Teletext like this, that people give some ideas and we have done them if we have been able to do it. We get a lot of ideas to how to improve things. Now we can not realize so many of them, some of them, but what I like very much is this connection with the public that's still alive.
Yeah, it's the public. You're doing the service for the public, and the public are asking you to do things. So it's an excellent relationship, and the secret of a successful service, certainly.
And this is a tradition that was. I remember when the consulting people working as consults, they came in 15 years ago, 10 years ago. They came to Yle and started to preach that how you must listen to the public. And I was sort of that. Well, we have done that already before.
Well, it's always a new thing to somebody.
Right.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on your Teletext service, Matti. I've really enjoyed it. I've been grinning from ear to ear listening to you, and I've really have enjoyed it. So, I'll look forward to sharing this with the wider world at some point. Well, what I'd like to say, if I've got this right, I'd like to say Kiitos ja näkemiin.
Right, Kiitos ja näkemiin.
Is that right? Is that good?
Yeah, that's all right.
I've spelt it phonetically on my notepad as well. Kiitos ja näkemiin.
Kiitos ja näkemiin.
It sounds like a bad English pronunciation of it. No. Kiitos I can do quite easily.
Thank you.
But no, that's been absolutely brilliant, Matti. Thank you very much for everything today.
Thank you.
And all the best. And then we'll keep in touch for sure.
Right, that's nice.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Cheers.
Thank you. Long live Teletext.
Yes, long live Teletext. Keep it blocky. Thank you.
Yes.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Matti Rämö of Teletext in Finland. And you can actually view Teletext online by going to yle.fi, where you can actually see the live YLE text playing out before your very eyes. Well, I hope you enjoyed that latest instalment in the chronicle that is Teletext. Remember, you can always rate the show on iTunes or wherever you get this podcast. please do tell a friend or tell two. If you feel that way inclined, you can buy me a coffee on ko-fi.com/bite high. You can find me on X at TeletextR. You can also join the Discord. The join up notes are in the notes of the podcast here. This episode was edited by Dan Farrimond and is a Bite High No Limit production. And until next time, keep it blocky.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.